All right, here's a review video for operations with integers. This is definitely something you have learned before, but maybe you forgot, or maybe you just want a little extra practice. So when you are doing adding or subtracting with integers, you just have to keep track of the signs. This is the number one probably thing students struggle with in pre-algebra and algebra 1. Obviously, adding two positive numbers is the easy one that people don't really mess up with. So positive plus a positive is going to be a positive, and you just add the two numbers together. And then a negative and a negative is either considered subtracting or adding a negative. So like, for example, if you have -5 minus 7, or if you have -5 plus -7, those are both the same thing. Adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So what I like to think about it is just like grouping numbers together and then ask yourself what you would get. So if I group together a +5 and I group it with a +7, I'm going to have now 12. If I group a -5 along with a -7, those are both negatives. I'm going to have even more negative than I had before. I'm going to have, in fact, -12. Same thing here. If I group a -5 with or and a -7, I'm going to have a -12. So the proper way to write it is to not do plus a negative, but instead of just do -5 minus 7. But they mean the same thing. So the general rule is if you add two negatives together, you're going to get an even bigger negative. Kind of think about it. I like to think about it as IOU with money. If I owe you $5 and I owe you another $7 on top of that, then I owe you $12. So it feels like intuitive and natural and you don't have to worry about it. On the other hand, when you have one positive and one negative, something totally different is going to happen. So let's keep going with this, with these 7s and 5s as our example. So if you have a -5 plus a 7, then when you have numbers of opposite signs, you're actually going to find the difference or subtract them. In other words, you guys all probably can easily say, what is 7 minus 5? Well, obviously that's going to be 2. If I change the order of those, it's still the same thing. It's a +7 grouped together with a -5. So if I group them in this order, +7 grouped together with -5, or I group them as a -5 and a +7, it's the same grouping, so it's got to have the same result. It equals 2 in both cases. The bigger number is positive, so the final result is positive. If I switch it up and I have a -7 plus 5, or I rewrite it as a 5 minus 7, now in this case, the bigger number is negative, but it's the same groupings. It's a group of a -7 combined with a +5, or a +5. Notice when it's in the front, you don't actually see the positive written, but it is a +5 and a -7. So both of these groupings have a negative number as the larger number. So it's going to overwhelm the positive number, and the answer will come out to be -2. Again, with the analogy with money, it's like this. Like if I have $5, but I owe you 7, I have to give you all 5 that I have, and I still owe you 2 more on top of that. You could also look at it as like, another easy way to, for me at least, to visualize is like, say you've got the ocean here. Let me even make it blue for you. How cool this is. You got a blue ocean with water, and +5 is where you start. So you're starting up here 5 feet above the ocean, and then you go down by 7 feet. So you're going to go down 7 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, the first 5 feet took you to the surface, and the next 2 feet took you 2 feet below the water. So if you start at 5 and you go down 7, then you're going to end up at -2. The other way of looking at it is if you started at -7, so you're starting way down here at -7, and you go +5 would be like going up 5. So you start swimming upward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you make it up to -2. So this is a distance up 5 from a starting point of -7. Or this is a distance of down 7 from a starting point of +5. They both get you to the same spot, which is -2. So you could think about money, you could think about IOUs, you could think about swimming above and below surface level. All these are good analogies for adding and subtracting positive numbers. Okay, let's take a look at multiply and divide, see if I left enough space for us here. When you multiply two positives together, I'm going to stick with this 5 and 7. I like that. 5 times 7. That's just basic everyday multiplication that you've known since elementary school. You get 35. Cool. When you multiply two negatives together, the negatives cancel out. So a negative times a negative cancels out, and those become positive. And again, the numbers are just whatever they are, 35. When you multiply a positive by a negative, it doesn't really matter which one is which, a positive 5 and a negative 7, or a negative 5 and a positive 7, then you're going to get a negative result. So positive times a negative or negative times a positive, both lead you to a negative. But again, the number is still 35 in all cases because 5 times 7 is 35, regardless of whether it's positive or negative. The order that you write them in doesn't matter. That's the same as a negative 7 times a positive 5. All of these are the same. So you can change the order of it. You can change which one is positive, which one is negative. But anytime you have a positive times a negative, it'll become negative. And anytime they signs match, both positive or both negative, they'll come out to be positive. Dividing is the same. Same thing with all the sign conventions. So whether you're multiplying or dividing, the sign conventions are all the same. If the signs match, it's positive. If the signs differ, it's negative. And then you either multiply the numbers or divide the numbers. So this is hopefully a quick review and reminder of operations with integers. It can seem easy, but especially when you're getting bogged down with new material in Algebra 1, it's sometimes this is where we kind of make simple mistakes along the way. So it's good to refresh ourselves. All right, hope you enjoyed this. And if you want more review videos, just take a look on this same page.